think we can get started. So thank you everyone for being here. Today we're going to have a career talk by Jania Okwechime. And we're super excited for Jania to be here with us today. Just as an introduction, like you guys probably have seen on the flyer as well, Jania is the Associate Director of West Africa, Data Analytics Leader at Deloitte. She specializes in developing AI technology and data analytics solutions in the domains of fraud, bribery, and corruption, and anti-money laundering, process automation, and RegTech. She has worked as a big data consultant in the US, UK, and Asia Pacific, where she provided data warehousing solutions to major international financial institutions, telecommunications companies, and retailers. She holds a Ph.D. in machine learning and with 6 scientific publications to date. So welcome, Jania. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. As you know, Skillup Africa is a program where we help enable technology training for young people in Nigeria. So today we have here some of people who have already gone through the program, who've already graduated, who are now working in the tech industry. We also have people who just started their own cohort. So it's a little bit of a mix, but everybody I think is super excited to be here and have the opportunity to learn from you and for you to share your experience. So thank you so much for being here again. And with that, I'll just hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Nkam. And likewise, I'm super excited to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your program and to talk to your cohort, those who've already gone through a lot. And thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to skip this. And what I would say that I'm going to talk to you in the next, say, 20 to 25 minutes is basically how you can develop a career in artificial intelligence and data science. But that's because that's what my background is, and that's my journey. But whatever I say is equally relevant to any tech journey that you're going to go on, and any sort of tech career that you're going to develop in technology. So I'll quickly walk you through my journey, and then please feel free to ask any questions in the end. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. I thought I would kickstart by, what is AI? What has been my version of AI? I thought I'll start by some of the things I've done in the past. So Nkam already introduced me. I'm currently an associate director at Deloitte. But if you look back, my career really started from the completion of my PhD. And these are some of the things that I completed during my PhD. So my PhD was in computer vision. Computer vision is that part of AI where you make or help computers look at an image, look at a video, and start to recognize things and make sense of things that humans can. For example, some of my research work included doing face recognition and gender classification, where I would write an algorithm where you would present an image to it. It would say, oh, I can see a person and it's a lady. Oh, by the way, it's Janet. Or you can present to it a pedestrian, and it would be able to tell you whether a pedestrian is walking towards you or moving away. And this was the interest behind this was, the autonomous vehicles, and they want to prevent like collision, or knowing, not to bump into pedestrians, etc. I also had an opportunity to work with medical imaging, which is again another area that AI and machine learning are used, where I looked at classifying cancer images or cells to be whether they are cancerous or not. So this was just to sort of tell you the starting point of my career. But what I'm really going to walk you through in the next few slides is I'm going to take you on a journey, my personal journey on developing a career in AI. But before I do that, you might ask the question, why AI and why now? So AI has been around for decades, since the 50s, but why is it now that really is a buzzword? Like everyone is talking about it, everyone wants to get into it, and what has motivated AI being so mainstream these days? Well, there are several factors that contribute to this, but number one of those is explosion of data. Nowadays, we generate data. Every single thing that we we do. Every time you send a text message, every time you pick up the phone and make a phone call, every time you send an email or chat with your provider on a chatbot, or anytime you take a photo and upload it in one of these social media sites. These are data that is being generated every second. In fact, this huge explosion is attributed to the technology that's available now, to a point that 90% of the data that exists today was generated in the past 2 years. So you can imagine the exponential growth that we're going to see in the years coming. But in addition to that, now we have better infrastructure. Now we have cloud computing. Some of you, I mean, maybe you're too young to remember, but perhaps me and Kim would remember the times where we were using floppy disks or a CD, and we had, like, I don't know, 1 gig of memory or even much less than that. Now we don't have that. We have cloud computing. We have hardware has become much cheaper. So we've got the infrastructure and we've got the data. So now it has enabled AI to be utilized to harvest this data and to gain insights, to a point that the AI market size is estimated to be $390 billion by 2025. So really, it's a good time to know about AI and to also want to be in the industry doing this. And again, just an overview of what AI is and some of the components of AI. We could start with computer vision, which is what my PhD was in and I explained. So some of the examples of AI you already see using computer vision are the drones, where they're able to see and navigate their way and recognize objects, or autonomous vehicles, where they are able to recognize the different signs and pedestrians and navigate their way through the roads. Or speech recognition, another example that most of us already use. Every time you pick up the phone and say, "Hey Siri, what's the weather like?" Or Alexa, do this. My 3-year-old actually goes to Alexa and says, "Alexa, play Baby Shark." So he's already utilizing AI via speech recognition without even knowing it. This is how commonplace AI has become in our lives. Another component of AI is natural language processing. So natural language processing is where an algorithm or a robot essentially can actually read a document and understand what it is. This is used a lot in law firms at the moment, where they're doing e-discovery or a dispute, where they're supposed to produce millions, read through millions of documents to provide evidence in an investigation. So instead of taking a team of 20 lawyers, spending a month reviewing those documents, you can actually use machine learning to automatically classify those documents and mark them as either relevant to the case or not relevant. And then there goes all the way to different components of AI, like rule-based systems. When you're playing chess against the computer, then you're actually utilizing an AI rule-based system to be able to play your game. So you can see AI is everywhere now, and we use it in our day-to-day lives. But what I'm really gonna talk you through now is how you can shape your career in AI and data science. And if you can see here, I've put "your" in all capitals because emphasis is on you. What your journey to developing a tech career or developing a career in AI might be very, very different to the person sitting next to you. What might be your ideal tech career or ideal career in AI might be someone else's living nightmare. So it's very important to really find something that uniquely suits you. So I'm going to take you through some of the questions that I had to ask myself, or some of the considerations I had to make, all the way from graduating from university to the point that I am here. And hopefully maybe some of these questions, I would really like you to start thinking about them and asking yourself those questions, so that you can hopefully start to see, it will trigger some answers for you, so you can start shaping your own career this way. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge that, we may all be in different parts of our career on this call. As Ken mentioned, some of you have already completed the tech course, so you're more equipped with, taking the next step. Some of you have just entered this. Some of you could be graduates. You've just graduated from university and you're looking at, what is the next step? How can I enter the industry or, start my career? Some of you might already be a professional, maybe in another sort of area of business, but you're interested in getting to technology. What are some of the considerations that each of these groups need to make? Let's start with students or those who are at the very beginning of their career and they really want to do AI and they think, what can I do? So for me, the best way to get into a technology career, and specifically AI, is to really ask yourself the question, where does your passion lie? Because there's a lot of misconception that, if you're having a career in technology, you're like a back-end developer sitting somewhere and doing programming all the time. Yes, there is that job, and it's an extremely important and useful job. And there are some individuals who absolutely love it. But that's not the only way or only path to be able to utilize technology and to be able to utilize AI. Here are some of the examples that I want to give you, just to sort of like, so you can open your horizons and really look at AI and look at technology from a different perspective. It could be actually that you've studied biology and your passion is biology. You really love sciences. But is there room for you in doing AI in biology? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, AI is used in the medical field for drug trials. All the way from computer vision, being in a controlled environment, trying to measure the amount of different components that goes into making the medicine, all the way to actually predicting some of the adverse effects that a medicine could have. Or some of the medical imaging that I mentioned, there's this thing called augmented reality, which is, combining like an AI avatar with the actual real world, that now is being utilized in surgeries, where you can see a projection of the brain, and they can actually move things around while also real time looking at, operating on the brain. So there is absolutely room for you to get involved, even if your passion is in medicine, in biology. On the other hand, you might be into sports. You love tennis, you love football, you may want to do sports reporting. Is there anything that you could do with AI? And the question is yes. In fact, some of this tracking of the players that they use in this live TV is actually done by AI, and that's computer vision. When you play tennis, the hawk eye to see whether your ball is in or out of the court, that's also AI. Or if you have watched Moneyball, you see that actually you can use predictive learning to be able to find the best formation and the best players. So see, there's even room for you there. Or it could be that you're into gaming. Gaming industry is one of the industries that has been utilizing AI for the longest time. In fact, I think, was it last year that Sony created this component where the soundtrack of your game will automatically change based on the way you play, which could present the mood you're in. If you're feeling a bit aggressive, maybe we'll go with like really fast songs, or you're playing mellow, maybe you'll calm down and play calm music. So there is room for you there. Or it could be that you're in fashion, and you might say, but fashion AI, how do they work? In fact, there's this online fashion retailer, ASOS in the UK, that has been using computer vision and machine learning to be able to make recommendations on what their customers want to wear. Or you can upload an outfit that you really like, and it will automatically go and search all of their inventory and pick up things that match your outfit or match your proposed outfit, and then give you the options to buy them. Or it could be that you're into charitable work, where you really want to use AI for humanity. And that's absolutely possible. One of the applications during my time was to install cameras in the elderly homes where they live alone, and be able to do action recognition. So if an incident happens, let's say someone falls down, breaks their leg, and because they're alone at home, no one can care for them, it will automatically alert the social care workers so they can come and help that individual. So hopefully by now, you should really start thinking that the first place to look is what I am passionate about. And now let me see how I can leverage technology to make a difference in that field. Now, to those of you who've actually graduated from a degree, including a technology degree, and now you want to say, okay, where do I go next? What do I do now? So these are some of the questions that I had to ask during my time that I believe it's still relevant here. To begin with, you might want to ask yourself, do I want to stay in academia, or do I want to go to industry? I was always passionate about academia. In fact, I always thought for the longest time, after my PhD, I'm going to do a postdoc, which I did, but then I'm going to become a professor and teach in university because I love teaching. I love, imparting knowledge. And for the longest time, I thought that's what I'm going to do. And you could still do that because you can still be in AI, you can still be in technology and do your research and push the, edge of technology and the boundary by coming up with novel solutions that can solve problems. And at the same time, do teaching. So if that's your passion, that's absolutely something you can still consider. For me, unfortunately, because I graduated during the worst financial crisis, no jobs in the industry, everyone had moved to academia, which meant all the faculty positions were also filled in academia. So then I was actually pushed to go to industry. But then when you do go to industry, you can still ask yourself, what kind of person are you? Like, what kind of environment do you absolutely love working in? Are you more of a startup kind of person, or are you more of a corporate kind of person? Apart from like the obvious, the difference in like the way your outfits and the way you would get dressed to go to work, instead of wearing jeans and a hoodie, you might have to wear like suit or skirts. There's some other things that you need to consider. So working in a startup environment, it means it's a much smaller environment, which means you would be wearing many hats, because not only you'll be doing what you're asked to do, say, develop this code or create this program or create this product, but at the same time, you might be also involved helping your manager getting the budget set or creating the presentation deck to bring it in front of the investors. Or it could be that you'll be involved in recruitment at the same time, or you might be a little bit in finance, a little bit in tech, a little bit here, a little bit there. So it actually gives you a great opportunity to do a little bit of everything and gain experience, first-hand experience on how a business is set and grown from ground up. But at the same time, there might be a lot of pressure as well, because usually the team size is small and everyone has to really work hard. You can't just go and leave for a week or 2 weeks and no one will notice it. The business will actually feel it. At the same time, not all startups end up being the next unicorn. Some actually, unfortunately, after a couple of years, sort of fade out. So you might be worried about your job security. On the other hand, a corporate world, yes, it is great. You get to leverage a lot of experience. You probably get trained, you get help with certification, etc. But at the same time, it's a massive, massive corporate. Things don't happen as quickly. Before something can get done, there are a lot of policies and procedures will need to take place, a lot of considerations. You can't just come up with a solution and present it to the client, because there are some of the risks involved, the corporates, reputation involved. So you might find the pace a lot slower, and you might not be that kind of person. So you see, there's again no right or wrong answer. Which environment do you really feel that you will really flourish? Which environment do you really think that you're going to thrive? And that's the person, who you are. So that's the kind of organization you need to consider. So when you're dreaming, you're thinking your career, close your eyes. Where do you picture yourself? Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but these are some of the things that you have to ask yourself. And let's not forget about entrepreneurship. Maybe you want to run your own business. I personally believe that there are those people who are entrepreneurs and those who aren't. I've personally known people who cannot stay in a job more than 6 months. After 6 months, one thing or the other leads them to believe this is not for me. And they just move from one company to another. Eventually, they just set up their own company, because they have that vision, they have that drive, they want to get something done and they want to get it done their way. So they grow the team, they put the hard work, and they do it. But there's some others, like I had to set up my company just after I graduated. And I was very passionate about this product, which was the computer vision product, similar to what is being utilized in Google goggles. And I had a few leads, I had a few clients, everyone was extremely excited and I was really like gearing up to do this. But after a few conversations, it turned out they're more interested in hiring me as a person than my product. So, so I failed to lead the conversations in a way that I would actually establish me as a business. I felt like, okay, maybe I need to step back. Maybe I need to go to industry and, expand on my experience. And then maybe at some point in my life, I might come back to this. So that's another question. What might be, or another thing to consider, what might be right for you today may not be right for you 5 years from now. Allow yourself to change your mind. Allow yourself to evolve and adapt as you move forward in your career. And so one other thing I wanted to sort of mention, now getting a bit more practical, as AI in business, and what I call the dream versus the reality. So this is the situation where you've got all your qualifications, you've passed all your technology courses, you're passionate and you're qualified, and you've actually entered a job. say as a data scientist or as a data engineer or as an admin, technology admin, or a technology SME. You're really ready to go and change the world. You're like, I've got my degree in AI and I'm going to go and do magic. I'm going to, build this most complicated, amazing piece of work that's going to make a huge difference. And then, you come to my team, or, you get to another role and you see that you're stuck with data cleansing the whole time. And how do you feel? So I've had this experience with my team a lot, and there's two kinds of people. There is those who realize that, yes, I want to do this big, wonderful predictive model, but I need to go 10 steps back to see what is actually practical at the moment. Does my client even have the data to be able to build this model and do this wonderful thing? If they don't, then I'd rather go and actually solve that problem, and then step by step, help the client get onto that maturity curve, be in a point that they can do this predictive model. So they need to be able to crawl before they can walk, before they can run. So it's great to realize that even though you have the best ambitions and the best, ideas in your mind, but you need to also know what works and what doesn't work. So those who feel that way and they adapt themselves and they go on being very successful and feel their job is very rewarding. However, there would be those who would feel a bit disheartened. But I've studied this much, I've invested myself to go and, build a predictive model to do, predict what, data, what product you're going to buy next. Why am I here cleaning data, putting it into a database, coming up with quality issues and things like that? They feel disheartened. And then slowly, they sort of, get withdrawn, and either, they slow down or they eventually have to leave because they feel like they don't have that passion. So again, those are some of the things that you need to be disillusioned even before you start, or that day that you start a career, that be realistic. What you want to do, you may not be able to do day one, but it's important that the work that you deliver makes an impact. So to summarize this point, here are some of the things I believe that you need to consider in order to be a successful AI data science practitioner, or in general, a successful technology practitioner, a tech professional in the market. No matter how far along in your career you are, make time to learn new concepts, especially in the field of technology. I remember my supervisor studied psychology, and he used to tell me they were reading books or articles that were like 10, 20 years old because nothing really changes much, But in computer science, in technology, we see new trends coming up every day, new technology coming up every day. So you need to equip yourself by learning new concepts. Actually, a few months ago, I think it was last year, I came across this partner in our Deloitte firm in US who was the lead. He was the business unit leader, and he was a accountant with all the qualifications, like 20 years of experience. And he said that, he's taking a career break. He's going to do a master's in data science because he felt like this is something that's really current and his clients need to know about it, which means he needs to know about it to be able to adapt his services. And that was very encouraging, even though, he's given his age and his reputation and his position in the organization, he didn't really even think twice about going back to school. So that's the mindset that you need to have. It doesn't matter where you are in your career, always be willing to learn new concepts. And the second point is very, very important. Understand the business, not just the technology. And this is where I was hinting at before. You need to understand, because sometimes you're so excited. We're like, I know Python, I know ML, I'm going to build, a customer churn model. And you try to push this down your client. And you go to client and say, you're a very small, company. They probably have 5, 6 clients. They work with businesses. They're not really interested in that yet. So what's the point of you spending all your time and effort building that when that's not the business issue they have? Instead, maybe what they're interested in, how can I develop a strategy so that I can go and now acquire more clients? And now I can look at retaining those clients, for example. So it's always important as a technology-driven person not to just be a tech person, but combine your technology skills with your business acumen, because essentially that's what's going to drive success. Doesn't matter if you're in a startup, doesn't matter if you're in a corporate or your own entrepreneur. You want to do business at the end of the day. You need to understand those crunchy business questions and now go back and see how you can solve that using technology. For example, if a client says, my investors want to know my, I don't know, ESG reports, which is the economic, social, governance. Like they are interested in knowing how green my organization is, right? For example, what's my fuel consumption? Am I a sustainable business? You may not obviously immediately think tech, but you can actually take a step back and say, how can I help this organization? Then you think, okay, what are some of these ESG markers that you need to collect? Let me look at your source system. Let me see if you actually have the data to answer those questions. And now you start building the pipeline. Those backend developers will build the backend. Those, front-end designers, those of you who are invested in, say, Power BI, business intelligence skills will now build the front-end analytics to be able to answer some of these questions. Or it could be that, it's an oil and gas company and says, we spend a lot of time sending our personnel to these remote areas to do maintenance of our equipment. That's the business question. You need to understand what the business really needs and now go back and say, how can I actually use technology to answer that question or make this person's life easier? So you then go back and say, actually, if I pick up certain markers like date of last service, the number of hours this generator, for example, is being utilized in a day, I can actually put that into a machine learning model and predict when it needs to be serviced. So instead of them routinely going every 2 months, maybe this particular one is utilized more, they need to go every month. But this other one, they only use it once in a while. This one can be serviced once a year. So you see, these are some of the things that you need to ask yourself. And then finally, build with the future in mind. It means that don't just get stuck on what is now, what's being done. So say everyone at the moment, for example, is doing fintech, everyone is doing, or customer churn. That's what I need to learn. Not really. You need to start looking at the horizon. What's coming? What's upcoming in your own market? And not just like what's coming up in US, because they may be way ahead. What's happening in Nigeria? For example, IRA is about to come up in October, right? What is the technology that would need to be here to be able to now accommodate the regulatory changes? Some other regulatory requirements are coming up. So always think and build something, invest in yourself with the future in mind. So quickly, the other 2 points. So this one, be able to talk AI to a 10-year-old, as well as an expert in the field, as well as the CEO with no knowledge of AI. So to me, this is not just AI, this is any technology concept. What's really important for me, I always say, those who really know it are able to explain things very simply. Those who are not so comfortable, that's when they start throwing some of these buzzwords and big words and here and there. But if you start digging deep, they will not be able to explain. So at least as a practitioner in this field and also as a leader, that's something that I look at in my team. I always say, whatever you're talking, even if it's you've built the most amazing product, if you cannot explain it to the key stakeholder, if you cannot explain it to your boss, if you cannot explain it to your client what it does, it's going to have zero value to them because they don't understand what it is. They don't understand the value. So it's very important that not just develop your technology skills, but develop your presentation skills, develop your, how you can articulate a certain concept to the right person. Yes, maybe you'll be talking to the IT person of your client. You need to go as technical as you can because that's the language they speak. But it might be that you're talking to the CEO of a company who has no idea about technology, but understands his or her business. So you need to be able to explain how what you've built is going to impact their business, make their life easier. So these are some of the considerations. And finally, educate and empower your peers and your clients along the way. You're not going to be working as an individual. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you need to rely on your team. Or you're a consultant, you need to help your customers. And by helping them, I mean, you empower them with sharing your knowledge, helping them learn about new concepts, in this case, AI, or a specific technology field that you are in, to also help them expand their own horizons and see how valuable that is, and how useful you could be or your services could be to them. Quickly, I usually get asked, what do you look for when hiring new talent? And these are some of the things. Mostly, when we go to interviews, when we go to like people who we were hoping to start working with them or build our career, we always think about revising, or, when we start a job, we feel like, okay, as long as I get my work done, I build a solution, it's fine. There are some other key things that I believe are maybe perhaps even more important than knowing that technology inside out. First of all, I look for people who are enthusiastic and passionate about their work, because if you're passionate about a work, if you don't succeed the first time, you find a way to do it because your passion is there, that drives you. So when I'm interviewing, I see whether they are passionate about what I'm doing so that they can be part of my team. Do we share a vision? So it's extremely important, which is why when at the start of the presentation, I said, pick a career that you're passionate about. Yes, it's technology. Yes, it's AI, but it could be biology, it could be sports. Pick something that you're passionate about. Willing to learn, and not just the tech, but the business. So this is something I also touched up on, right? So when you're in a company, understand the strategy, the vision for the company, for the business. Where do they want to go in the next 5 years? Not just learning the technology that you can now, be their tech person. No, you should be able to contribute to the business, to the vision, leveraging technology. And don't be afraid to try and fail. This is something that I really admire in people, that they're willing to try. And I like to give people the opportunity to try, because unless you try, you don't know whether you're good at it or not, right? If you look at this picture, this is something I came across and I really love it. See, it says, this is where your comfort zone is, and all the way here, this is where magic happens. And it's true, the very first time you get pushed to do something, maybe the first time you get pushed to pitch your idea to a client, the first time you get pushed to actually build a prototype, it's out of your comfort zone. It's a bit nerve-wracking. What if I fail? What if I do this? But it's absolutely fine, because imagine when you actually go and do it and, come out there, in flying colors, the thrill that you'll get, the experience. Or maybe you do 70% of it right, and, the remaining 30% was not so well this time, but you learn from that. And then you try better next time. Or it could be it was a complete fail. You still learn not to do it that way going forward. And God knows the number of times I've failed. I failed at so many different levels, and that's just me, who's not even like, I'm just only this at this point in my career. For this, I like to give the example of Dyson. I don't know, you would probably know, the Dyson Hoover, Dyson vacuum cleaner, like literally has revolutionized the way we like clean our house. And it's very, very popular now. But if you read about Dyson's background, I think he tried 5,300 times, like 5,300 different models and components over the period of 5 years, and failed all of them until after, say, 5,332nd time, it just worked. So, be tenacious and don't give up, and keep trying and failing and learn from each failure every time. And know when to ask for help. So this is something I always tell my team members. What I like for an individual who works with me is that you go and try your best. I give you like a 60-page document, which is a regulatory report, and I tell you need to go build a database that fits this specification, or build a solution that can compile this file. I want them to go and really give themselves the time to try and try. But there's a point that you need to know that, okay, I've now spent on this, 48 hours in a row, or like a whole week I've spent on this, and I'm not quite getting there. That is the time then you ask. You should know when is a good time to ask. And I always say this, and please take this from me. There's never a stupid question. Do not ever be afraid to ask a question, because it's much better to ask something and clarify and go ahead and deliver an excellent job, rather than not know anything and go ahead and do something that you thought was right, and now go and deliver and get disappoint yourself and disappoint your colleague who was expecting your work. So find that balance that you can always ask for help, because what you might have spent another 1 week trying to figure out, maybe a more experienced colleague or your peers have done this before, can tell you 1 or 2 tricks. They get the whole thing done in 1 day. Again, when you're working in a business everything is critical. Time is critical. So don't be like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me just ask someone and they'll tell me. No, go ahead and give it your best shot. Try. But when you see that, no, this is the time that I'm just going to be wasting my time and the business's time, let me go and ask for help. I think that's critical. Always be a team player. That's very, very important. You know, it's not just about I and me. It's about a team. If something works, it's the team. You know, they say, was it the team, the best team makes the dream team? I don't know. I can't remember that saying, but basically it's actually, the team makes the dream come true, something like that.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. The teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you, Michelle. And I really believe that, you know, it really is working as a team because we all have different capabilities. We're all good at different things. So it's when we come together and then we're able to accomplish the most. And then finally, have integrity. That's something that is absolutely critical for me. And I know it is for everyone and a lot of people. You need to have integrity. You know, we will try and we will fail, but you should own up. You should be held accountable for your own work. And I think that to me is the highest level of, showing your character where, you know, you've done something to the best of your abilities and you failed. Instead of kind of like blaming others or trying to come up with like reasons why it didn't work, or perhaps even fabricating reasons why it didn't work, which is absolutely terrible. It's important to have integrity because your colleagues will respect you, your bosses will respect you, and your clients will respect you. So that's another sort of characteristic that I would highlight. And finally, just at the end, I guess my advice to you guys is, you know, your journey in AI or technology will be unique to you. Do not live someone else's dream. Just because everyone is running to do this new trend, it doesn't mean that's what you should do. It's easier said than done because, you know, there's peer pressure, you know, or any sort of like, you know, social media, everyone's doing this, why am I not doing it? No, be true to yourself, because if you follow someone else's footsteps and it's not what you're passionate about, you're going to fail sooner rather than later. So be true to yourself and build your own journey. Learn, and learn some more. You know, nowadays, you know, I think we're so privileged. There's so many sources of learning technology, like what Nkem and her team are doing here. You have this opportunity to learn specific technology skills. You can utilize online learning. There's the likes of Udemy, LinkedIn. You know, back in my days, you had to go to university, or, you know, you had to go buy expensive books, textbooks to learn some of these things, and maybe be lucky to do some experiment with, you know, some professors. But now there's a wealth of knowledge. So truly, if you're really after it, you will find the time and the place to learn. Be determined but adaptable. I think I just want to elaborate on this a little bit more. And I'll give you an example from my experience. You know, I had just graduated from university. I'd done an internship at Google, and I was like, this is great. You know, when I finish and I'm going to industry, I'm gonna have a career in machine learning, and I'm gonna build predictive models. We're going to do this and this and that. I'm gonna revolutionize the world. And where did I end up? I ended up in a company that was doing big data analytics. It was a wonderful company. It was actually at the top of its game. It still is, but it meant that I am helping enterprise data management, all the big banks, retailers, etc. But every now and then, like every few months, I'm not even joking, I would sit down and think to myself, like, am I wasting my time? I got a Ph.D. for God's sake in machine learning, and here I am just doing data, big data processing, learning their, you know, software to do this. It would upset me so much that I keep thinking, you know, but, you know, some of my colleagues have moved to US. They're doing, you know, Google Picasa and Google Maps and some of the things that I wanted to do, but I had the constraint that I had to stay in the UK. I couldn't move to US, you know, so, and there are no, you know, computer vision or even machine learning jobs at the time in the UK. So I kind of had to deviate. So for the longest time, I felt bad. And eventually I sort of like made peace with myself and said, okay, this is where I am now, and I need to adapt. So I said, okay, instead of, you know, wasting time feeling bad, I'm going to learn everything there is about big data. And now flash forward a few years later, and where I am now, I'm actually in this unique position that I'm able to bring in my AI, you know, credentials and experience with data, with big data expertise, to be able to serve a vast amount of clients and a wide range of services. I can do big data analytics and now add AI to it. So you see, sort of somewhere like down the line, it helped me. So I think you should trust the process and trust that where you are at each point in time in your life, that you're meant to be there, and just be adaptable. Dare to make a change. You know, I was in that organization. Everyone said it's the best workplace they've ever worked with. There were people who'd been coming from 10 years careers in a bank or other locations there, and they said, I cannot imagine working anywhere else. So it was really hyped up, like, but then I was sort of feeling like yes, I'm technical, but I also enjoy leadership positions. I enjoy talking to people and mentoring and a whole bunch of like business development. So after a few years, I decided I'm going to go to another role where I can exercise all of these. And that's where I moved to Deloitte. So dare to make a change. If at any point in your life, you feel like what you're doing now, you've either outgrown it, or your passion has changed, or your purpose in life has changed, then don't be worried to make a change. And finally, be kind to yourself. We've come through a very difficult time. Pandemic has impacted everyone. Everyone's working really hard. If you're in technology, competition is huge. So it's very difficult. It's very easy to be your own worst critic, especially the perfectionist in you. Would probably have done a great job, 90% of it. That 10% that didn't go so well, you'll be like hammering yourself in your head thinking, oh, that didn't go well. Please don't do that. Please take a step back to really celebrate your achievements, even if it's small. I do that, and I feel like that's helped me a lot. Maybe you set yourself like an agenda to do more self-development, maybe half an hour of LinkedIn learning a day. And after 5 days of doing this consecutively, just give yourself a pat on the back and say, this is really good. I'm going to go treat myself to like a nice cupcake because I achieved something. Just really be kind to yourself, because then you put your mentality in this positive mode. And, when you feel more successful, you end up attracting even more success. So I would really, really ask you to do that. And then last but not least, and in fact, very important, never, never, ever give up. I like you to look at this picture. I really like this, because don't ever give up, because you don't know how close you are to, getting to that place that you really want. So please don't ever give up. I think I would now like to just close with one of my favorite quotes, which says, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So I hope that, you will, as you move forward, start asking some of these questions and start building that dream, and then go ahead and make that a reality one step at a time. I think I'm going to stop there and ask any questions.
Thank you so much, Jania. That was amazing. And I'm sure everyone learned lots and lots of stuff. I especially loved the part that you spoke about, sort of knowing the business, because I always, that's one of the things that I always tell my team as well. I'm like, you can have all the skills, but that's sort of secondary, right? Technology is just the tool to implement the solution. It is not the solution, right? And you really need to understand what the problem is in order to come up with the solution. And for that, you need industry knowledge, right? So if today you're working in, agriculture, you need to understand agriculture. If tomorrow you have a project in financial services, you need to understand financial services, which is why I think as someone who works in tech, you sort of need to be read far and wide and really understand different types of businesses in order to really be able to do an excellent job. So thank you so, so much. Guys, if you have questions, now is the time to ask them. So you can just raise your hand and then you can unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat box to put in your questions. Especially the ladies, please, let's have some questions. All right, guys, not all at once, come on.
Oh, okay, we got one. Kelly.
Okay, Kelly has a question. You can unmute yourself and then you can ask the question.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so first of all, today makes it 1 year I graduated from university under the Skillup program.
Nice.
So yeah, I studied Python for data science at university, and after that, I have concluded 2 internships, one with Bolt and one with KPMG. And what I have realized is a lot of companies, tech companies based in Nigeria, do not use a lot of Python. So they use a lot of Excel and other visualization tool and SQL. But I'm on the path where I really want to chase data science, not data analytics. But I know I have to start from somewhere, right? And getting an internship in data science in Nigeria with just basic Python knowledge is quite challenging. So you see an internship position and then you apply for it and you're telling you, oh, we need someone that is very proficient in this with so years of experience. I'm like, how do we get this experience if we're not given a chance to even want to be put in a group or in a team to learn? Because the zeal to learn is there, the hunger is there, but the opportunity is not. It's like, it feels like we are not there yet here in Nigeria, and it's making a lot of us chase opportunities abroad. Again, there's the challenge of not so much experience, and it can be very overwhelming at times, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do at this point. I feel like I'm stuck at some time. So I don't know. What is one advice you would give? Like, how would you say, okay, this is how you should go through this, or maybe you should do this to give yourself an edge in the industry?
Excellent. Okay, should I go ahead or would you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly, for sharing your experience with us. I think there are a couple of things you mentioned that. You go there, you go to the company and, they don't do a lot of Python. So that's one. And secondly, like, how do you gain experience if, these companies don't do a lot of Python? So, there's, to answer both questions, well, to answer the first question, I would take you back to my slide, the dream versus the reality. Remember that I mentioned, you've just, done this fantastic course, come out of it, you're skilled to do Python, you're joining this company to do a lot of Python. But that's not there, right? But as I said, take this time, like Bolt and KPMG, they're both very different companies. I'm sure you've actually gained really valuable experience from both. To be honest, I think Bolt, I'm surprised to hear there's no Python because Bolt is the local Uber, right? And a lot of machine learning happens in Uber. So this is actually surprising to me that there weren't specific things that you would have done. But think about it this way. Python is a means, right, to deliver something. It's a tool. The idea at the end of the day, what's mostly Python used for? Data science, right? Build a machine learning solution. Is it that they weren't using Python? Maybe they were using R, maybe they were using...
No, there was Python at both, but the department was like, no interns allowed in that department. So it's kind of like really experienced people just in that department.
Okay, well, so that is quite unfortunate. And, this is what I'm saying, maybe perhaps not at your level, but I think it's my responsibility, or like me and Kim at our level, to sort of educate these kind of companies that if you do not give opportunities to the fresh talent to gain experience in this, how else are you expecting? Just like you said, you would say maybe seek opportunities abroad, which is really painful because you need to grow local talent to give them these kind of opportunities. So in that case, Kelly, it's nothing on you. So you should not feel disappointed that it was actually Bolt's loss not to take you on board, right? So I'm sure there are so many other companies and startups who would love to have you. So, always know, like look at things for what they are. If this is not giving you opportunity, then it's probably not the right company for you. Look at elsewhere. But in terms of actually gaining experience, yes, there's one thing about getting experience. You can say, yes, I've been building this model for XY company. That's different. But you can actually gain equal experience on real world problems by maybe going to Kaggle or Zindi. You can actually say, I've worked with real world data. I have built a solution. This is what it looks like. So that, if you're next time applying for another job, you put that as your, so I actually take that into consideration. People come to me, they have a whole like GitHub website and they tell me all the products they've built, they show me, and I actually admire that because they've shown initiative. Yes, I've not had the opportunity to do this in a company, but I have been doing this at home. I've been doing this on real world data with what's available. And in fact, when you go to a company, it's not different from that because you don't always have the data. Like we have to simulate data and mock up something, do a POC. And I would personally value that experience because that means you're versatile. You've worked with different kinds of data, whereas maybe Bolt only has like driver's information and like route data. But Kaggle or Zindi has like a lot. So always look at it that way. And always, I think this applies to anything. Pick your battles. You may not be able to change the mentality of that department in Bolt, right? But you don't have to waste your energy thinking that's the end of the world. Let that go, and now focus your effort and energy on going to a company that would appreciate you and your skills. I hope that provides some answers and clarifications to your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that as well. So I think one of the things that I've also found is to, like Jania said, work on stuff that is not necessarily within an organization, but then write about it, right? So in today's world, you can land opportunities by having visibility, right? And part of that visibility is to write a blog post about something that you're working on, right? So come up with say, okay, this is the problem, this is how I'm solving it, and this is, what I've done so far, visualize that data, show, really cool models and screenshots and different things that you're doing. And then figure out how do you get that in front of the right people, right? How do you get those people who are making those decisions to either have interns or not have interns, or to take not so experienced people into their companies, to see that kind of stuff and say, okay, wow, I'm impressed. I want this, particular person to come and work for me, right? So sometimes you have to go the extra mile to put yourself out there. The beauty of, sort of this digital world is that there's Medium, there's LinkedIn articles, you can put slides on SlideShare, and, this type of stuff can be found. So you just put a little bit of effort into sort of the packaging of yourself, right? And I'm a very firm believer in trusting the timing, right? So sometimes things don't happen immediately or when you want them to happen, but there's a reason for it, right? And there's a reason for the journey. And sometimes that journey takes you through valleys and mountain tops, but you need to be able to appreciate the fact that it is a journey, because that's how life is, right? And everyone's career takes you through different places that you may or may not think like, what am I doing here? Why, like Jania said, she gets, people come in and then suddenly they have to, sort of like, mine data or like clean up data. And it's like, but I did this and I have this certification and I know how to do this really complex model. And you're here having me look through Excel and, sort of make sure that surnames are all in the right column or whatever it is, right? The truth is that what I've found is that no matter what the experience is that you're able to get, it is always valuable. My first job that I ever had that I, got paid for was as a dishwasher. And to me, I learned the most valuable lessons during that job. I don't want to do that job today, but it taught me so many things that many other much sort of better seen jobs would never have taught you, right? And the biggest lesson there was humility and patience. And I think those things are sort of invaluable. So a lot of the time, trust the journey and just take some time. Okay, Joseph, do you want to add something or?
Just want to add something. Thank you, Jania, for such a powerful session. Thank you so much. So what I just want to say to Kelly is, a friend of mine recently had a similar stuff in Australia, and this is what he did. They've always run on Java, and the system was such a complicated one. And they were looking for a way, they were trying to fix a bug, and there was no one with a particular skill at that time. And what he did was, rather than telling them, he just took the challenge and went to fix it himself at home. Now, the lesson there for me is that if you find yourself in a place where they're using the technology other than what you're using, and you think the technology you have is more efficient, you can actually just do a solo work at home, build it, and come show to them, and that way you might actually convince them. The reason why things like this happen is because the person who is in charge, the leader in the team, that is the skill he has. And so naturally, that's what everybody in the team will be using. But if you come and demonstrate that you can actually do it better, most likely you'll be noticed, and you can land yourself a better job from being an intern and all that. So that is just a little contribution I want to make.
That was really good, Joseph. Actually, I really like that. It's absolutely true. It doesn't matter what level you are. You're an intern or you're, I don't know, a director in a company. Like I feel the same way. Once you build a prototype, they actually have something tangible to see and realize the value. It's much easier to convince. But I really like what you said, Joseph. Yeah, don't wait for them to give you the opportunity. Go and build it and prove that you can do it. I will take that on board.
Thank you. I have another question.
Okay.
So, is it what's your take on pursuing a master's degree in AI and data science without having a bachelor's degree in computer science or in any other related field?
Sure. So again, as I said, I think nowadays we live in a world that you don't have to come from the computer science, degree to be able to get into further education or a career in AI. So just look at what are the requirements for that specific, master's degree that you want. For example, there's no like yes or no answer to everyone. Maybe someone like yourself, you have a degree in biology, but you've gone through this course with Skillup Africa, and you know Python, about data, this, that. That's all you need, when it comes to, master some of the prerequisites. I mean, other than actually if the university specifically asks for like a degree in computer science, then that's different. You can't really do anything about it. But in terms of will you be successful? Yeah, the answer is yes, because, you need to basically go there and you might be programming in MATLAB or R or Python, doing some of these things. So you have the prerequisites, so you can go and absolutely do it. But it might be that someone actually studied biology, but didn't do any of the technology courses. Not that they can't do it, but, going there week one, the professor is already expecting you to build a model in Python. And this person will have a lot of work to do to go and first get skilled in Python and now be able to catch up with the rest of the cohort. So it's just really think practical. There's absolutely no, reason why you can't go for it. You just see whether you're ready and you really want to go for it, and whether it'll be easy or you need to put more effort in it. Can we see a few questions on the chat?
Yes. So I think you can just go ahead and answer them. Maybe just read them out so that people,
sure.
everyone can hear.
So Chukuma has asked, how can a Nigerian data scientist break into the data market outside the country, say UK, for example? Are there particular certifications that one needs to acquire? Also, are there platforms one could source out international jobs, even if it's unpaid internships, where one could build the relevant experiences in the data science field? I actually wanted to say, I think what Nkem said somehow also answers some of these things, right? You need to have visibility. At least, I mean, the short answer is I personally don't know if this is the route to go abroad. But I have seen people who have gotten offers abroad, and those who have are very active on LinkedIn. Those are the ones that, Nkem said they've done their own research, they've built things, they have a blog, they talk about this, they do, volunteering, like mentoring at Data Science Nigeria. They start building that, and then everyone is linked, he's connected to my network. I have people abroad, like UK. So obviously you get that visibility. And then before you know, you've sort of made a name for yourself, and then you get people approaching you. So that is, as I said, visibility is very important. I don't know a single platform that, would want to do that, that's meant to be, get sourced into internships, etc. But one other thing, like an approach I like to take, not necessarily just for this, but for anything. Why wait for them to come after you? Like if there's something that you need to do, say you're interested in doing an internship at Google or Microsoft or some other place, find out the person, the recruiter, find out, positions, find out, are they taking you, and just proactively apply. Send emails. I mean, don't bombard everyone with the same email, you know, like spam everyone, but really, but you know, like find out one or two things that you're really interested in and write a statement or like an email that really talks about your passion and why you want to do it. And trust me, that will make an impact. As long as that person, you know, checks their email and they're not like and also find the right person. If they're like the CEO of a company, they probably have no time to check their emails. But if it's the HR, then of course they'll be interested, and share your CVs, share some of your work. I think that's something. I don't know, Nkem, if you have other suggestions for Chukwuma.
No, I think you've sort of covered it, and I think they're also one of the ways to sort of gain experience is in the not-for-profit world, right? So there are a lot of non-for-profits. There's one specifically that actually focuses on data. I will try and find the information, but basically what they do is that they get volunteers to help non-for-profits build data models, right? So they have like advertised projects on their site where they show, you know, sort of say, okay, this is the problem this not-for-profit organization is trying to solve, and then basically, you know, ask for people who would volunteer to work on that project. So that I think is a good way, because that's an international organization. You would be working for free, but it might be a good way of volunteering your services as well as building your network and meeting other people who are in data science, right? So I always say that, you know, like your network is really your key to success. So you need to network with the right type of people, be connected with the right type of people. And you need, you know, like Jania said, that visibility, so that when I see on LinkedIn that you're doing X, Y, Z, I can comment on it and say, oh, this is fantastic. You know, I can share it as a post on my own page. I can tag, you know, people who maybe are looking for people who, you know, with your qualifications, right? So I think it's really about, you know, figuring out how do you build a profile, how do you find these opportunities, right? And I'm sure there are more of these type of opportunities than just this one that I know of, that I recently just stumbled upon it, right? I'm sure there are more of those type of opportunities that allow you to, you know, both add value and learn at the same time, and sort of beef up the experience, right? And then also be able to probably ask them, can you write me a recommendation, right? Which is also great. And those recommendations can be on LinkedIn, right? So that's also a really great way. If, for example, you did a project, you know, for that organization, and then, you know, their maybe, I don't know, CIO or something writes on your LinkedIn and says, oh, I enjoyed working with Chukwuma and this and that. That is validation on its own, right? Because then people are like, okay, no, this Chukwuma must be someone that is really good, because look at this person, type of person, for the type of project that has commented, right? So you really must make sure that you use the networking tools that you guys actually much luckier than Jania and I and Joseph, right? Because when we were, you know, sort of starting our careers, LinkedIn was just like, you know, you go there, you put your picture, and that's you. You know, it was almost like an online CV. It wasn't as interactive as it is now. It didn't have that much engagement and ability for you to connect with people the way that it does now, right? There was, you know, you could have your own blog, but who was reading your blog, who was interested in, you know, like your journey? Nobody. Today it's very different. I think also the sort of like where personal branding has gone is completely different. People look at it in a different way. So you guys have all the tools. It's to learn how to be very effective in using them. And then the last thing I would say, if you're looking for, you know, sort of these kind of platforms, maybe also find data science communities in different countries and just write them and say, hi, you know, I'm a data scientist from Nigeria. I would like to, you know, explore more opportunities outside and build my network. I want to know what you guys are working on. If you guys need help with anything, right? I found that when you do free work, it gives you many opportunities in the future, because it's almost like paying it forward, right? So you've extended a favor, and then that person will help you in the future, right? Plus you're gaining experience. So really you're doing it for yourself and not necessarily as a favor.
I think also Kelly says there is, you can check for internships on Forage, create an account and go through. So Chukma, I can also read the chat in case that's also something you'd like to do. I think there's another question.
Yeah, there are two. So there's one from Onome. Onome says, I'm new to tech, learning front end. How best can one identify the business aspects of tech?
Okay, so again, just like Nkem said earlier, the business aspect depends on what business you're in. And you know, you say front end developer, right? So that could be, say, a portal that you're developing for the data to be entered, or it could be the reporting, you know, the visualization, the dashboard that some of these metrics are visualized. You just need to look at what business are you in, because that skill that you have, you can apply to any industry, any business. So you just apply your, you know, from what you've learned. I'm sure when you're learning to do that, you have the whole software development lifecycle in terms of finding the specs, KPIs, etc., right? But now you take that and you now add the business acumen, the business question. So to me, what I like to answer, obviously, this is something that will be communicated to you, but you're asking how best you can identify, not only just identify, but also learn about it. For example, because that identification part, they will tell you, if I'm asking you to build me, I don't know, let's say a customer relationship management front end, I'll tell you that I want to be able to capture my client's age, this and that and that. So that part is fine, but you know, they might be saying, but we want to be able to, I don't know, we were mostly in, I don't know, we're mostly in Nigeria, but we want to expand to, say, Ghana and Kenya. And how do we do that? So you start thinking, okay, what are some of the things that is particular to Nigeria that maybe Ghana and Kenya don't have? Now start asking yourself the questions of what works in Nigeria? What are some of the trends? I think I'm struggling to give you a really good example you can understand, but I think it's really talking to the key stakeholders. You know, maybe you will not be able to directly talk to the CEO or the strategy, but you can go to their website. So this is how I do it. You know, when I'm about to, say, offer a service to a client, you know, they have these, their, you know, annual reports they publish. Part of the strategy says, we want to expand our market share, or customer experience is extremely important for us, or sustainability and green, you know, being green and being, you know, environmental free is the key focus. So what I do and say, okay, how can technology help them be green? How can I help them reduce their CO2 emission? You know, and then you're a front-end developer, right? You say, okay, so far this client is not storing in their databases all the fuel that's used in all their branches. Let me suggest that as a feature. So then you can track that, and then you can set a target and now start tracking year on year how this has reduced. That way, I'm helping you get one step closer to your ambition of being a green and environmentally friendly organization. I hope that sort of, like, you really need to, like, there's no like one way to understand. You really need to do your studying, do your research, and understand the business, and then do your like quiet time and thinking how you can now contribute to that. I don't know if that helps. I don't know, Nkem, if you have something to add to that.
I'd like to add to that.
Yes.
Can I?
Please.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Jania, for that. You actually did very well in answering the question. But what I like to add is similar to what Nkem said earlier on also, that you, and you mentioned it, that when you get a specific project, you'll be most likely, it's going to be in a particular sector. It can be in health, it can be in education, it can be in any of those sectors. During the course of that project, you would have to, for example, do requirement gathering. You have to talk to the various stakeholders, the different departments. So one of such projects is I worked with NSITF, Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund. And when I started talking with them, I got to understand the structures of insurance organization, especially regulators. And I understood enforcement, all of that. Now, you think that those knowledge at that point, especially when you are new to it, you think that they're just stressing you by making you do or talk to those stakeholders and getting to know all the jargons of their industry. However, what happens is you're learning. The next time an opportunity shows up, what happens is you just go in and say, oh, don't worry, I know how to, you know, you are even guiding them. Especially one of the things I've seen is the fact that you will now see somebody doing that at a small scale, maybe a startup, and you are now an advisor to the startup. You basically tell them everything they need to know, something that there's no how they would have known if they had never worked in that industry. You now have that experience. You know, I built the platform for Avon HMO, for example, and that was when I learned about health insurance. So when Philips Consulting was trying to build their health insurance platform, and they talked to me, they were blown away because I'd learned and I'd had a field experience. Now they were willing to pay more, you know, just because they think I'm going to add a lot of value. And that is basically what happens to you. So you will now see that over the years, you now would have gathered a lot of experiences that when you just get on a platform to talk, people were like, where did this guy come from? It's basically that cumulative experience that you get. And that is the business, because business is always about being able to leverage on, you know, knowledge of the past to strike better deals and, you know, to do very well. So I think that's a little, I don't know, contribute.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like, I mean, I've worked in tech the last 15 years, and there's stuff that I learned in year one that I still reference today and still use because it's industry knowledge about a particular industry that is still relevant today. And I think the more sort of different industries you've worked in, the easier it is for you to even cross-reference examples and also start seeing patterns of, you know, sort of behaviors, you know, of the data that is within those industries. And I think that's really where it then gets super exciting and super interesting, because you then are not speaking from a, oh, okay, I only know insurance, but I know insurance and I also know how financial services work, and I also know consumer behavior, and I know retail. And this is why, for example, selling retail insurance doesn't work in Nigeria. And then suddenly you sound like this like super intelligent and super knowledgeable person, but these are bits and bobs that you've sponged up over the years, and that you've sort of been able to connect those different data points in order to make a lot more sense from that, right? So, you know, like, just learn. I always say, learn like your life depends on it. Jania had something similar in her slides. I think it was learn, and then learn some more. You know, so I think that's really important. So I think we'll take the last question that we have here from Usman. He says, thank you for this session, ma'am. Really appreciate it. I just graduated from product design about a month ago, and I'm currently looking for an internship opportunities. I would like to know how data science has helped shape design decisions in the organizations you've worked with.
Thanks, Usman, for that question. So I'm not sure if you sort of specialize in a specific product design, but I'm just going to speak more general, because at the moment, you know, a product could be a physical product, like iPhone is a product, or a product could be a new product that the bank is bringing out. It's like a new loan targeted to students, for example. But either way, you know, like machine learning and AI or technology in general is now touching on every product design. So what you need to understand is that how you can enhance. So I like what Kim said in the beginning, that, you know, technology is an enabler. And in the same way, is an enabler of a product. It could be a traditional product that you now bring in the tech, and it actually takes it to a different dimension. So at the end of the day, why are you designing the product? Who are you designing it for? And what are some of the things that you could do better to make their lives easier? And I think that's what you should always have in mind, the end person. For example, you know, my bank, traditionally, there would be, let's just think of something that you might not even think of as a product. You know, like when I have issues for whatever transaction, or I need to call customer service, right? Normally I would pick up and then have to punch my, you know, dial my passcode, or like third letter of my, you know, PIN or whatever, and answer a security question and things like that, typing. And that usually takes time, right? Because sometimes I'm actually working and now I have to, like, my hands are busy. So what they did, one of the banks in the UK, they now added these speech recognition or voice recognition. All I have to say is pick up the phone and say, my voice is my password. And it allows me into my account. And it starts telling me my transactions, my balance, etc. So that's a new feature that they added in its speech recognition, in its data science, that is really making my life easier, because I could be like typing in that important email at the same time I'm talking to my bank and getting all the information. So it's little things like that. So you have to understand what is it, which feature that could make a difference. And again, in one of the first slides, I said AI has very different components and shapes and forms. You just find the right one that suits your product and now enhance it. I hope that sort of helps guide you to some more thinking so you can come to your answer.
Yeah, and just to again say, technology is just the tool, right? I think focus more on the problems you want to solve, right? Focus more on what you're passionate about. And I think when it comes to sort of product design, that, is something that really, when you think about it, really focuses on the customer, right? So when you then think about sort of problem solving, you have to think about it from the perspective of, how do I make the customer experience better, more seamless? How do I make sure that the customer can do things like, so what does that customer even look like, right? So whether you're building a product that is based on data science, or you're building, an app, or you're building a web portal, or you're building, some kind of internal product for an organization, right? It always has to go back to, who is the customer? What are their pain points? What type of person is this, right? How much time do they have to do these different things? And I think this is where, you can also, while you're still looking for your internship, really also start thinking around, what can I, which product can I take and analyze, for example, right? So you could take an online banking app and you could say, okay, you know what, I'm going to compare 5 banking apps, one from maybe like Ikuda Bank, one from, some more traditional banks, and just see what are the differences, right? And then maybe one that is like a piggy vest, that is like sort of like not really a bank, but sort of a bank. And then really compare those customer experiences, right? And then say, this is how I would enhance the product, right? And I've seen many of those type of articles written by young people, and I'm just like blown away, because they've put so much work into the research behind it, and they've come up with such clever design solutions, right? Where you're just like, yeah, actually, hi, head of GT Bank, can you please go and look at this article, because you need to fix this, because it makes my life very, very tough, right? So if you, sort of like take that initiative, take the time that you have now to do research, to learn, to also read up. There are a lot of also, sort of blogs out there that analyze products, that look at products, and then you would start seeing the angle of where people are coming from. How did they get to this? And everything boils back down to customer experience.
That's absolutely right, Kim.
All right. I think that's it. So with that, I would just like to say, on behalf of the Skillup team, Jania, thank you so much for giving your time so generously. Your presentation was amazing, and we know that you put a lot of effort into preparing it. And sharing also your own journey. I think that was really, really helpful for everyone to just sort of see what is a possible journey. And I love the fact that you gave so many different options of, there's not one defined path. There are many, many paths. And obviously the takeaways and learnings at the end were amazing as well. And thank you for staying to answer questions. I know we've taken more time than we had told you we would take, but thank you so much.
Absolutely fine. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I want to wish Skillup Africa and the cohort, new and old, all the best.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay. You too. Bye. Bye, guys. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye.